This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac. 28 minutes of stories for everyone about Ukrainian life. I'm your reporter, Stefan Andrusiak. This is episode 269, first heard in February of this year. Welcoming more than 1 million visitors annually, High Park stands as the jewel of Toronto. It spans 398 acres. That's 1.61 square kilometers. In a prominent spot on the east side of Colburn Lodge Drive, there is a statue erected by the Ukrainian community back in 1975. They did it to mark the International Year of Women.
Зорганізоване українське жіноцтво Канади, розуміючи та оцінюючи геніальність дочки українського народу, в цей Міжнародний рік жінки, а особливо в році української жінки, спорудило та офіційно відслонило пам'ятник Лесі Українці в Торонті.
The statue commemorates the Ukrainian poet and playwright Lesya Ukrainka. On the back panel, the name of sculptor Mikhailo Chernyovsky. The bronze sculpture stands on a granite base. On the front, beside her name, in both Ukrainian and English, are written the words, "The greatest Ukrainian poetess." Lesya Ukrainka was born February 25th, exactly 150 years ago. Today on Nasha Kasha, we'll tell you her story.
На галявині лісній, у червонім сяї маку, Лукашем я грав пісні і побачив милу мавку. Вона заслухала ту пісню степів, і довго поруч ми стояли вдвох, та лиш я до неї ступив, видіння раптом зникло.
These are my friends Rushnechok from the album Rushnechok, Volume 4, Lisova Pisnya. It's a reference to Lesya Ukrainka's work called Lisova Pisnya. The song Lisova Pisnya was made famous by a 1970s group called Kobza. Their keyboardist Alexander Zuyev wrote the music.
Тепер мені шукать ті бажані чорні броди, чи в гірських лісах Карпат, чи в низинах Придніпров'я. Як ті ліси пройду, степи ті пройду, та неодмінно любу мавку знайду, ті пісню я нову складу, загра моя сопілка
She was born February 25th, 1871, in what today is Novograd-Volensk in the Volyn region of northwestern Ukraine. The Kosich family baptized their daughter Larissa. They would affectionately call her Lesya. When Lesya was 5 years old, she asked her parents if they would call her Lesya. Ukrainka would later become her pseudonym. Her father, Petro Kosich, was a lawyer, educated in St. Petersburg and in Kyiv. Lesya's mother was Olena Pchilka, a very successful writer. In 1881, 10-year-old Lesya fell through the ice at an outdoor water blessing ceremony. Shortly after being rescued, she began to experience unbearable pain in her legs and in her joints. It would be diagnosed as bone tuberculosis. She, with her family, would move to Kyiv.
Мене клявся ти любить, не полишити на мить, не дотримав слова ти. Лише раз на все життя, вся трояна розквіта, той краси не втримав ти. жаль, ні сум не торкнуться моїх дум, наші стежки розійшлись. У наступному житті синю квітку не згуби, серце відчини їй скрізь. Там розпуститься колись.
Mezzo-soprano Valeria Mudra with Blakitna Troyanda, The Azure Rose. A woman, Lesya Ukrainka, her writing, different from anything available in her lifetime in Ukraine. It was modern, with European influences. No one in Ukraine wrote about love in such a passionate, personal way. Lesya wrote The Azure Rose in 1861. It describes the life of the Ukrainian intelligentsia. The main character, Luba, suffers from multiple nervous breakdowns. She turns down a marriage proposal from Orest because she doesn't believe that he'll understand her illness. But Luba does recover. Better now, she visits Orest only to find him near death, sitting in a wheelchair. She pledges her love forever to him, and she seals her promise by taking poison. Azure might best be described as the color of the sky on a clear day. Lesya's mother would later write that her daughter's eyes could actually change color from gray to azure. This is Azure Rose by the composer Wisp X. According to the Internet Encyclopedia of Ukraine, which is hosted by the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, Lesya knew Greek and Latin and the Slavic languages, Russian, Polish, Bulgarian. She was one of 6 children, and she thought that one of her sisters needed a better history text. So she wrote one. Published in 1918, Стародавня історія східних народів, The Ancient History of Eastern European Peoples. She would go on to translate the works of Gogol, Hugo, Homer, but suffering from tuberculosis stayed with her for all her life. She would travel to Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Egypt, to Caucasia in search of a cure. Travel exposed her to new enriched experiences and further broadened her horizons. Her promise showed from a very early age. At the age of 9, she wrote the poem Nadia, Hope, and published her first poem Convalia, Lily of the Valley.
Росла в гаю конвалія під дубом високим.
There once grew a lily under a tall oak.
Захищалась від негоди під віттям широким.
She was joyous, but not for long.
Та недовго навтішалась конвалія біла, і її рука чоловіча віку вкоротила.
A young man chose her, picked her, shortened her life.
Ой понесли конвалію у високу залу, і понесла її з собою панночка до балу.
He gives the lily to a girl who brings it to a dance.
Ой на балі веселая музиченька грає, конвалій та музика бідне серце крає.
Music plays, but the flower mourns.
Тож панночка в веселому вальсі закрутилась, а у конвалії головка пов'яла, схилилась.
As the young woman twirls, the flower dips and wilts.
Промовила конвалія: «Прощай, гаю милий, і ти, дубе високий, друже мій єдиний».
Goodbye to you, oak, my one and only friend.
Та й замовкла. Байдужою панночка рукою тую квіточку зів'ялу кинула додолу.
The woman, thinking the flower now worthless, tosses it away.
Може, й тобі, моя панно, колись доведеться згадать тую конвалію, як щастя минеться.
Says the flower, perhaps you'll remember me when your own good fortune is discarded.
Недовго й ти, моя панно, будеш утішатись та по балах у веселих таночках звиватись.
Not for long will you yourself be flitting around ballrooms.
Може, колись оцей милий, що так любить дуже, тебе, квіточку зів'ялу, залишить байдуже.
Maybe someday your lover, not caring, will leave you too, a wilted flower.
Звільни свої думки, відчуй подих я поруч, навіщо всі ці замки? Раніше були ми пліч-опліч, не справжніми були ми. Отруїли помилки і незгоди, ми схожі, як 2 краплі води. синоніми. Як два синоніми. Дружими, схожими, сходами на небеса, присвячую тобі своє життя. Я так сильно люблю, ти квітка моя, конвалія, та конвалія, та конвалія, та конвалія, та конвалія, та конвалія. Ти квітка моя, конвалія.
To hear the poem Konvalia without my English language interference, go to YouTube, Lesya Ukrainka, Konvalia.
Чужинцями стали ми з часом. Любов горить у полум'ї, як два інших полюси разом. Спілкуємо з різними мовами, і нехай на полі бою один одному ми вороги. Я чекаю, повертайся додому, моє серце належить лише тобі. Як два синоніми. Дружими, схожими, сходами на небеса, присвячую тобі своє життя. Я так сильно люблю, ти квітка моя, конвалія.
Viktor Pavlik and his group Pavlik Overdrive with their take on a song called Konvalia, Lily of the Field. Nasha Kasha comes to you from Radio Western 94.9 FM on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. We're heard on CHMR 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland, on CKDU 88.1 FM in Halifax, on Local 107.3 FM in St. John, New Brunswick, on CJAS Radio 93.5 FM in Saint Augustine, Quebec, on CJLO 1690 AM in Montreal, on CFRC 101.9 FM in Kingston, on CFMU 93.3 FM in Hamilton, on CKMS 102.7 FM in Kitchener-Waterloo, on CJAM 99.1 FM in Windsor and Detroit, on CKLU 96.7 FM in Sudbury, on CILU 102.7 FM in Thunder Bay, on 101.5 UMFM in Winnipeg, on CJTR 91.3 FM in Regina, on CFMQ 98.1 FM in Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, on CFBX 92.5 FM in Kamloops, on CJSF 90.1 FM in Vancouver, and on CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo, British Columbia.
Коли опустилися руки, коли потемніло в очах, не знаєш ти, як далі бути, на що сподіватись хоча б. Не можеш, не віриш, не знаєш, не маєш куди утікти. І кажуть, чудес не буває, та мусиш для себе знайти. Допоки сонце сяє, поки вода тече, надія є. Лиха біда минає, просто повір у це. Надія є.
Vadim Krasnooki and Madheads sing their anthem of hope, Nadia Ye. Lesya Ukrainka wrote a poem called Nadia, or Hope. Ні долі, ні волі у мене нема, зосталось тільки надія одна. Надія вернутись ще раз на Вкраїну, поглянути ще раз на рідну країну. But perhaps her most popular work is Forest Song, Лісова пісня. Here she speaks of hope, love, and forgiveness. A forest creature, a nymph, called Mavka, meets a young man, Lukash. The Mavka risks everything for Lukash because loving a human is forbidden. But Lukash betrays her. He marries another. Mavka is punished by the spirits. She is turned into a tree. In the closing verses of the poem, she encounters Lukash again, who has come to cut a branch from which to fashion a flute. Mavka forgives him. Lesya Ukrainka was in terrible pain from tuberculosis when she wrote Forest Song. She would die 3 years later. Ah, for the body do not sigh, 'tis now infused and glows with fire divine, as clear and bright and glittering as good wine, whose life in sparkling bubbles mounted on high, naught but an airy pinch of dust remains to mingle with the earth below. Beside these waters shall a willow glow. See, my end gives life to something more robust. And me here shall many seek, both rich and poor, the joyful and the sad. Their grief I'll mourn, their joys shall make me glad. To every one my soul shall gently speak, and I shall find some word for all, the quiet murmur of my rustling leaves, the willow pipe that tender music breathes, the melancholy dust that from my melancholy branches falls. I'll give them back in mystic speech all these dear tender songs you used to sing, the tunes you played for me in that spring. Play them again, beloved.
Нічого спала, хто ж зимою робить? Спить озеро, спить ліс і очерет. Верба рипіла, все засни, засни. І снилися мені, снилися мені всі білі сни. Я спала, дихали так вільно груди, по білих снах рожеві гадки. Легенькі гаптували мережки, і ткались золото-блакитні, спокійні, не такі, тихі, не такі, як літні. Спала, дихали так вільно груди. Я спала, дихали так вільно груди.
From Kyiv, Ukraine, the recording artist Shy, here in a duet with Irina Kulshenko. Lesya Ukrainka, Лісова пісня.
Hello. My name is Sasha Dovzhik. I am a Ukrainian writer based in London and a research associate fellow at Birkbeck, University of London. My most recent work is concerned with a modernist writer at the very top of the Ukrainian literary canon, Lesya Ukrainka. This is actually an exciting time for me and for anyone interested in Ukrainian culture, because on the 25th of February, we celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lesya Ukrainka. This provides us with a wonderful opportunity to foreground her work, which is very little known outside of Eastern Europe, or for that matter, outside of Ukraine. This is, in fact, a paradox, because Lesya Ukrainka is the Ukrainian writer who is perhaps most committed to world literature, what she called the world themes. What is meant by this? So in her poetic dramas, Lesya Ukrainka explores some of the foundational European myths, such as the myth of Don Juan in Stonehost, the legend of the Trojan War in Cassandra, the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice in Forest Song, and so on. And she looks at these myths under an entirely different light. The difference that she brings is her proto-feminist point of view. In Lesya Ukrainka's poetic dramas, the often silenced mythical heroines acquire an agency and a voice. So today she's a significant writer for Ukraine, obviously, because she reframes our culture, our literature, as an integral part of the global literary culture. She holds a mirror in front of the Ukrainian readership and allows us to see ourselves reflected, represented, to have a say in the global cultural dialogue. And at the same time, she is a no less fascinating writer for readers outside of Ukraine, because she introduces a woman's perspective on the myths that have formed the foundation of the Western culture. Well, I hope that this anniversary year will be crucial in bringing out updated translations of Lesya Ukrainka's work into many languages. I actually am aware and delighted that the Ukrainian Institute in London has already launched a translation prize to instigate this process. And I absolutely can't wait to read, hopefully, many new translations of her works.
You can hear and see Dr. Dozhik on YouTube. The Ukrainian Institute of London, England, has sponsored a short presentation. It's titled Fin de siècle, Ukrainian Feminism. How Ukrainian modernist writer Lesya Ukrainka pioneered a new feminist literature at the forefront of European trends of the time. You're listening to Dacha Bracha from a concert recorded in 2015 in Lviv, Ukraine. Do you hear it? Spring is coming. Vesna. Vera Rich has posted translations of Lesya Ukrainka on a site called allpoetry.com, and she writes, quote, "Life as a writer under the Tsarist Empire, and particularly a writer in Ukrainian, a language officially decreed not to exist, involved its own strains and traumas. Lesya Ukrainka had to write under a pseudonym, and after, her work had to be smuggled over the border for printing. The completed books smuggled back. There was a constant awareness that she could be sent to Siberia for flouting the censorship in this way, and in her state of ill health, Siberia would have been in effect a death sentence. I simply want you to know that the original author was writing out of her own profound experience. It was not simply an abstract exercise." End quote. Here's a translation of Lesya Ukrainka's poem Contra spem spero, Hope Against Hope. Thoughts away, you heavy clouds of autumn, for now springtime comes, a gleam with gold. Shall thus in grief and wailing for ill fortune all the tale of my young years be told? No, I want to smile through tears and weeping, sing my songs where evil holds its sway, hopeless and steadfast hope forever keeping. I want to live, you thoughts of grief, away. On poor sad fallow land, unused to tilling, I'll sow blossoms brilliant in hue. I'll sow blossoms where the frost lies chilling. I'll pour bitter tears on them as dew. And those burning tears shall melt, dissolving all that mighty crust of ice away. Maybe blossoms will come up, unfolding, singing springtime too for me someday. Up the flinty, steep and craggy mountain, a weighty, ponderous boulder I shall raise, and bearing this dread burden, a resounding song I'll sing, a song of joyous praise. In the long, dark, ever viewless nighttime, not one instant shall I close my eyes. I'll seek ever for the star to guide me, she that reigns bright, mistress of dark skies. Yes, I'll smile, indeed, through tears and weeping, sing my songs where evil holds its sway. Hopeless, a steadfast hope forever keeping, I shall live, you thoughts of grief, away. Ukraine is joined by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization in celebrating Lesya Ukrainka's 150th anniversary. In an article titled Lesya Ukrainka, A Path of Love, Fight, and Hope, UNESCO proclaims, quote, values of peace, tolerance, gender, and ethnic equality, as well as the powers of inclusion. The famous author professed these throughout her life, leaving behind a vast literary heritage which deeply affects the Ukrainian and international cultural discourse. Until today, and for the remainder of 2021, happy 150th birthday, Lesya. Nasha Kasha is also a podcast. There's an easy way to access it for free. Go to nashakasha.libsyn.com. Nasha Kasha is one word. Libsyn is spelled Libsyn.com. nashakasha.libsyn.com. New Pathway Ukrainian News delivers news and insight every week in English and Ukrainian. Subscribe today at newpathway.ca. I'll be back in a week, God willing. До милої зустрічі. За тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.